It's about consistency, and it's about the tiny micro moments that are going to transform you over time, and not just those grandiose moments that are going to impact you right then and there.
Well, hey, everybody, this is Reed, and I'm here with my good friend Skot Waldron, and we are bringing to you the next episode of the Grow Rogue podcast. We're doing things a little bit different. This is actually going back to my old school podcast. If any of you had seen any of the Growth Secrets podcasts, you'll recognize this format. You'll also recognize Scott, who was with me in one of those early episodes. Scott and I have been good friends for quite a while now. I think we've known each other for 4 or 5 years, and we've been working together on a few projects, and they've gone super well. And so without further ado, Scott, thanks for joining me today.
Awesome to be here, and don't shortchange our relationship. I think it's been a little bit longer than that. I'm saying, like, since we first interacted, I think it was at some small business thing for UGA, right?
That's right. So, I reserve the right to forget how long anything has been, both since I have two small kids who have shortened my already short-term memory abilities, and it feels like since 2020, each year was like half a year in terms of just how fast it went by and speed. So I think you're right. As I'm thinking back, I feel like that presentation we did was maybe like 2018, maybe.
Something, because I sit there and I say
It is
that
wild.
doesn't it seem like every year, like COVID was last year or like the year
Yeah.
before? Like every year, it's like COVID was like a year and a half ago, year ago. Like it was, I don't know. I'm still in this like time warp where we still treat it like it was that. It's
Like
almost
we're
like
just out of it.
it's almost like 9/11. Like I forget how long ago 9/11 happened too,
Yeah.
and it's like it doesn't seem like it should have happened that long ago, but
Yeah, when I've reached the age where I'm using the phrase more and more often. Yeah, that happened, or I did that, or I was there, or we were friends 20 years ago. Like I'll use that phrase, the 20 years ago phrase. And then I
mhm.
get done throwing up after I say that. But it is where, it is what it is. It's where we are in life. But either way, Scott, it's been good to work with people that we like, frankly. And Nikki and I talk about this all the time that if we could just build the business of our dreams, it would be just doing things that we enjoy doing with people that we enjoy, doing that good work with, and the clients are happy. You and I share a client essentially. They're very happy. We were just talking about this before we pressed record. And so this is just something that we enjoy getting to do. But I'm also happy to talk to you because obviously our career and our specialties overlap a little bit. We talk about this Venn diagram of our skill set and your skill set, but also you wrote a book. Am I right? You want to tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, man. There's this journey that I've been on, as you know. But I'll start it off, like I'm not going to tell you the whole journey, but maybe we'll reference pieces of it. I would say my book writing journey probably started 6-ish years ago or something. Um, Kind of just putting it out there. I started to do more public speaking, and people were kind of asking me, "Hey, do you have your book?" And I saw there were speakers and they had books, and I was just like, I don't know, one day, maybe I'll do that. And then I started my podcast, which you helped me launch. So thank you for that. Helped me develop a process for that, how you were doing yours. And I started launching and just started doing all this stuff. And I started having more authors on my show, like new authors, best-selling authors. And I was interviewing these people, and I was always so intrigued. And I was using them as kind of this, like I was bouncing ideas off. I was going, so what was that like? Did you self-publish? Did you get a traditional publisher? Like, how was the writing process? What was the editing like? Like I was always asking them questions because I was like testing the waters. Um, and if one of the quotes in my book says, it's moving from passive action to massive action. I was taking a lot of passive action. I was just dipping my toe in the water, trying to get information, researching things, like all kinds of things for years. And then this thing happened. ChatGPT launched. And I was like, huh, what is this thing? Because here's what was in my way. Well, mostly myself. I would read 300-page books full of like Adam Grant, Simon Sinek knowledge. And I would go, there's no way. Like, there's no way I can write something like that. Like, it's chock full of research, brilliance. Like, I just can't do that. And then I was like, I don't even want to do that. Like, I don't want to sit and write 300 pages of stuff. So I was kind of in my own way. I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. I always want to blaze my own trail. So I said, my stuff's not original enough. So I don't want to talk about anything. So I was in my own way. And then ChatGPT came out, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to start asking it questions. So I started like saying, hey, what would a book about like the intersection of branding and leadership look like? Or what would the book go that was about procrastinators? Or what was a book like? And give me 10 chapters of a book that would be about this. And give me an intro paragraph for that section. Or like I started just spitballing with ChatGPT, and it was giving me stuff back, and I wasn't feeling judged. Although now, if you put certain things in, you probably will feel judged. But I was not feeling judged. And I was like, huh. And then another thing, Reed, I'd been collecting like quotes from authors and speakers and podcast guests and whatever for like 8 years. So I had this bank of quotes that I just loved. And I do use them in my coaching stuff, but I never knew really what to do with them. I'd send them out my emails and whatnot, but I was like, wow. So I'm a great spitballer. When I was running my agency, my designer would come up with stuff and I could spitball with them. Like I'd come back and I'd respond, I'd riff. I'm a great riffer. Coming up with my own original idea out of the gate, it's a little more difficult for me. It's not as fun. I can do it, but like I'm a riffer. So I said, I'm just going to riff off these quotes. So I used the quotes. I used ChatGPT to help me spitball some ideas. And I came up with a book called Unlocked. It goes by the same name of my podcast, Unlocked with Skot Waldron. You can find that there anywhere. But my book, Unlocked, is a 52-week guide for the intentional leader. It's 52 weeks, short, punchy, actionable insights that contain a little bit of inspiration. So, like a quote, some application, which is some questions and prompts for you, and then transformation, which is reflection. So it is more of a guide. It is something that you are going to not sit down in your toilet for, and read forever. And you're not going to sit down on a Sunday afternoon with a blanket and a fire and coffee and like read. It's not like that. It's like, I want you to take this thing for 5 minutes on Monday morning, Sunday evening, crank through the first part of it. It only takes a minute to do that. Write some stuff, work on it that week, reflect at the end of the week, and then move on. 52 weeks. It's about consistency, and it's about the tiny micro moments that are going to transform you over time, and not just those grandiose moments that are going to impact you right then and there. So that is a long-winded answer about the book and how it came to be. But yeah, man, I appreciate you for supporting me and doing what you did with it.
Well, no, I'm super happy to, and what I loved about it, and you point this out, and I felt exactly the same way. Like Scott, you and I, we've read like the classics, right? Like the business classics, and then every other iteration of that, which it just seems to be a regurgitation of all of those things, which is like, hey, here's some research that came out of some Stanford study, the studies show type stuff. And then you get finished with this book and you're just like, well, thank you for that theory, or thank you for that information. What the heck do I actually do now? Right? What do I do with this? And I also I have found it kind of at this point in just life and career, just given the busyness of everything that's going on, like I'm not at a place where I have the bandwidth to like absorb and meditate on like a 300 or 500 page book that you kind of go beginning to end with and then try to figure out something to do with it. Right. That's been like a frustrating thing. So I've been gravitating to things that are more immediately applicable and things that are, you know, what I felt like was an experientially derived bit of insight, right? Like you seem to have pulled this. I know you talk about Chat GPT and stuff like this, but like if you anybody that knows anything about that is that that's not a source of creative, like you're not going to come up with truly creative stuff. What you're doing is you're using that as a little bit of rocket fuel to take the stuff that you learned, that you experienced, and then just put dot the T's and cross the I's, right? And put that into words, which I think is the proper use of that. But I did feel like, it was very experientially driven and derived, and it was immediately applicable. And that to me is something that us, we'll call it busy creatives and entrepreneurial types and leaders, it's a heck of a lot more valuable than the studies show books, right?
Hmm.
So I did
Studies
appreciate
show.
that. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna
Well,
we're gonna put out the definitive list of study shows
yeah.
books
Yeah.
and just say like here's the one, there's like one line for each book. That's all you need to know, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
here's the study, this is what it shows, and then there's 800 words of just talking about the different aspects and implications of what that study showed. So
I agree. I mean, it was now, granted, I still dig into some of the study shows books for sure. They, some of the thoughts in there. I don't study them. I don't study the studies. I read through them. I go, oh, that's interesting. I might use some for my
exactly.
coaching or something like that, right? And kind of apply. But I'm just all about application, man. Like when at the end of the day, um, we all want, and this comes from my brand building days and marketing days, and that's where we kind of cross. I'm in the leadership consulting space and coaching space now and speaking. Um, but our worlds in that branding space was all about transformation. Companies come to us because they wanted transformation. They wanted their clients to experience transformation or their customers in some way. That's why we buy products. That's why we buy into whatever we buy into, is because we want transformation in our life. So I'm going to buy that new Toyota Tundra because I want transformation in my life. Yeah. Or I'm going to buy that new sweater. I'm going to buy that new product or that online course because I want transformation in my life. Um, but transformation doesn't come without application. And a lot of us, we get inspired. We have inspiration. We even have information, study shows. But without application, there's no transformation. So I'm never going to really transform from some of the study shows books. I'm just going to go, oh, that's interesting. And oh, that's a new way to think about that. But until I apply it in my life, meaning I go tell somebody else about it, or I start implementing the practice of whatever that study was teaching me, I'm never going to transform into anything. So I think that once we get into that mindset, then that's really what it's about.
I love that. So, what are, if you could pick maybe like a handful of those, maybe your favorite of the applicable lessons that somebody might be able to, we got there's an 80/20 approach to everything, right? What are maybe those small handful of lessons that you feel like, hey guys, if you would apply, like really apply these, then it will have the most transformational impact on your life or business or leadership, whatever. What would you say those are?
Well, I'm going to base them on the three sections of my book. So I've taken 52 weeks and I've boiled it down to three main sections. The first section that you're going to work on and is all about knowing yourself. So it's about self awareness, that ability to really know who we are and to be aware of those things. And so that's what I start the book off, that first chunk. And then the second section is about loving who we are. And I'm not saying stand in front of the mirror and, have some good talks with yourself. That's cool if you want to do that, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's really about appreciating what I bring to the table. It's about self-confidence. And how do we use that confidence to grow who we are, to create advantages for our career and for our companies in the marketplace or whatever, and to build influence with other people? If I don't know what I bring to the table, how am I going to sell that thing? And also what makes me unique, and what is that thing that I've done that's created impact? When we can understand, know who we are, our self-awareness, know what we bring to the table, love ourselves more, then we can lead ourselves. So that's the third section. So know, first section, love, lead. Lead is that last section about leading intentionally. Accidental behavior leads to accidental results. And accidents, by definition, are not good things. We have to pre-qualify the word accident with happy accident to make sure people know that it's a happy accident. When I say, oh, I gotten into an accident, everybody's like, oh man, what happened? Like nobody reacts like, oh, nice. Like nobody, it doesn't happen. So when we talk about intentional behavior, it's about how do we take the things that we know about ourselves, that we love about ourselves, and then lead ourselves intentionally to create influence and impact for the future. And I put it on a year-long journey because you know what? It takes a while. One of my podcast guests and who I feature in here, and also one of the individuals that wrote an endorsement for the book, Dave Anderson, leadership guru in the space, worked with John Maxwell. For those of you who know John Maxwell, for a number of years, he's written tons of books. He said to me one day, he said, Scott, it's over time, not overnight. And I was just like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that is what it was about. And I think that those are the three things that I really want people to understand, that if you apply getting to know yourself better, making the effort to understand what you bring to the table, and then being intentional about how you lead yourself, you are going to build more influence than you ever could have not doing those things.
So this one, I appreciate that you're saying this now, because this is one that has meant a lot to me over the years, especially. And if I can brag on you a little bit more, as many of you know, watching this or listening to this, Nikki, my wife, and I run the agency together. And Scott spoke with both of us. Probably, you may not even remember this, Scott, maybe a couple of years ago. And you did our personality evaluations, and we had separate conversations about, what makes us tick and what makes us unique and what special skills we bring to the table and what ways that, we maybe not quite as strong and where we should defer. And we joked that, you're the best, you have a second career as a marriage counselor. But it provided that almost like a permission to say, hey, look, this is something that I'm not so good at, and this is something I know I'm good at, and I'm okay with saying this is my strength. Weirdly, we have this. I think one tends to try to overcompensate for these things that we're weak at, and then we try to shy away from the things that we are better at. And it sounds like what you're saying is just kind of knowing yourself and accepting what those strengths and weaknesses are, and instead of what I just described, which is doing the absolute wrong thing in both ways, is sort of just owning up and saying, hey, that's not something I'm super strong with, and that is something that I am pretty darn good at, and maybe I do more of those things. And Nikki and I we've done a better job at staying out of one another's way when, given she and I are super lucky in that the things she's good at, I'm not so good at. And the things that I'm much better at than I am at other things, that's not the thing she cares to do. So, so that sounds like what you're speaking to. And again, I got real world experience to say that what you're talking about is real. You've applied it. We've applied it, and it really does help. So
Dude,
I appreciate that one.
yeah, man. I appreciate you mentioning it too. And I mean, seriously, you and I and Nick, we probably met for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, and you had that powerful realization, which is amazing. I mean, just that in its of itself, it's pretty powerful stuff. And yeah, I sometimes call myself a corporate communication therapist, and my wife's like, be careful with the word therapy. You're not a flight therapist. And I was like, I get it. And some people, my clients will say, oh, here comes Scott's therapy session. I was like, dude, I'm not here to fix your mommy daddy issues of the past. Like, that's not what I'm here for. Um, you said something really profound though. You said, I felt like I had permission. That is my thing, Reed. Like, is and it goes into my purpose statement is, help people feel that they have the permission to be who they were designed to be. You were put on this earth to be somebody and to do something. Nikki was put on this earth to be somebody and do something. Like, let each other be that and do that. Um, I don't think you're put on this earth to be a jerk, so don't let people do that and be that. But, you know, be who you were meant to be. And people, I feel like, don't have permission to do that, especially in the corporate space or sometimes in marriages or in relationships. We put the what we call oughts and shoulds onto people. You ought to be this way, or you should be doing this thing because you're this. I think women probably feel this a little bit more, especially women that have jobs or in the working space. Um, you should be a good caretaker, but you should also be a good employee. Like, you should have to do both of these things. Men, you should just be a good breadwinner for your family. And then you should be present when you are home with your family. Like, there's all these shoulds, or, hey, you're a good Christian, so you should act this way when you're out with other people. That, like, everybody puts their definitions of who we should be on us. And we feel caged in. We feel like I don't have permission to be my thing because I have to meet the expectations of somebody else all the time. And they want this from me, so I better do that thing. And we feel discouraged. We feel a lack of confidence. We feel a lack of growth. We feel all these things that hold us back. Hence why I call my podcast Unlocked. Hence why this book is called Unlocked. It's all about feeling unlocked. How do we unlock ourselves so that we can be free to be who we were designed to be? Have that permission. A bird flying is probably what it's meant to do, not be locked in a cage, unless you're rehabilitating the bird. Okay, I'll give it to you, zoos. But there's a purpose why we are here. And I think that's the gold, is that you have permission. Now, I'll go to some really quick. Yesterday, I was talking, my wife and I were sitting across the table talking about something, and there's a box of shoes sitting there. And also a gift from Christmas that we needed to return. I will tell you, my beautiful wife, the loving, caring, compassionate, give anybody anything, do anything for anybody, is horrible at returns. Like, horrible. Like, I don't know how much money we've lost on returns because we end up keeping something that doesn't fit anymore that we have to give back. And I'm not going to return something for $15 when it costs 20. So here's what happened yesterday. She goes, hey, can you help me with the returns? Do you know how hard that was for her to say that? Because I said, well, yeah, why don't you just let me take care of this? Like, I can knock out the returns, like, no problem. Like, I'm on it. And so I got the returns I was filling it out. It's a day late. We can't return it. It was like 31 days. It was 30-day return policy. And I said, so why don't you just let me handle this? Like, what's going on with that? And she goes, I'm just so bad at it. Like, I just want to be better. And I said, but why? Like, do you have, and she goes, I just don't want to burden you, because that's her thing. So she doesn't necessarily want to be better at returns. That's not her ultimate purpose in life, is to be good at returns. Her purpose was to not burden me with it. But if I said, but the burden comes when you don't return the stuff, that's where the burden comes. I'm happy to return the stuff because I know that we'll get the refund and everything will be fine. And then you won't feel bad about yourself. And I won't feel the burden of not having something returned and the frustration. And she's just like, I know. So she said yesterday, like, that was like, I feel like I now have permission, like, to just give it to you, and it's taken us 21 years of marriage to understand that. So again, long-winded explanation, but this whole purpose thing and permission thing is huge. So I'm glad you felt that. I'm glad you and Nikki have been through that experience. I hope that you're married forever now.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt. And there's no doubt that it has given that permission for sure. And that's a tough thing to differentiate. You mentioned, the ought tos and the shoulds and the give the permission, and you used a really great phrase there. You say to give the permission to be who you were designed to be. And I think it's important to differentiate between that and just doing whatever it is that you feel like doing, right? You've already clarified, you don't have permission to be a jerk, right? So to me, that puts me now, and it should put one in that headspace of thinking, all right, well, what am I designed to be? What are my strengths? Not what does feel easiest or something like that. But even though I think you'd probably agree that there's probably less resistance that we feel when we are doing those things that we're better designed to do, and there's more resistance when we're doing the things that maybe we shouldn't do. And one thing that I've tried to get better at just over the course of my career is to be able to say, like, am I struggling to get this done because I'm being lazy, or is it because I shouldn't be doing this at all? Right? Is this something that is not within my skill set or strengths, quadrant, however you want to categorize that or describe that? And is that just something that I should just delegate? Or am I just being a little lazy? Right? What ways have you kind of worked out to be able to differentiate between those two types of things?
There's a principle I use to coach my clients called the 70-30 principle. So you play basketball. You left-handed or right-handed?
Right-handed.
You shoot with your right hand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How much time do you spend practicing shooting with your left hand?
Next to none. Yeah. 0.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why? You're not good at it.
That's so good. I not to commandeer, but immediately I can steal your analogy, right? And go in this direction. Cause in sports, because what I do work on is my left-handed dribbling, right? Even though that is uncomfortable and that's not something that's natural, but that's something that is necessary and needs to be developed. But there's no player, and forgive me for going over the heads of any non-basketball fans, but there's no player that needs to develop a left-handed jump shot if they're right-handed. So I already love where you're going with this. Sorry for hijacking, but that's such a great analogy there. Is like,
Okay,
is
we're
this
gonna keep going.
difficult? Yeah, like, is this difficult because it is something that I just need to work on, or is this something that I shouldn't do at all? Keep going, please.
Oh man, you
That's so
broke it
good.
down even more. I love
It's
this.
so
Okay, we're
good.
gonna riff. We're gonna riff because I like to riff. Okay,
Yeah.
so left-handed jump shot, probably not needed.
Right.
Left-handed layup, I'm probably gonna need it sometimes.
Exactly.
Um, left-handed dribbling, probably gonna need it a lot more. You know. Let me ask you this though: will you ever be as good with your left hand as you are your right hand?
No, I'm never going to, I mean, just using my, writing and opening doors and doing all the things I do with my right hand, it's always going to have my right hand be more coordinated than my left hand. So, no.
Okay. So this is a simple principle that teaches, you know, if you're right-handed, okay, that's your natural strength. That's where you sink your shots. That's where you dominate. That's what you do. Working on your left hand is going to be helpful, But do I want you working on your left-handed jump shot, your left-handed layup, and your left-handed dribbling 80 or 90% of the time? No, I don't. Do I want you working on it? Yes, I do. Because it is going to be come into play in the middle of the game. We are going to need it at times. But I find people that only want to focus on their weakness. They only want to focus on the thing they're not good at. And they constantly are focused on, I suck at that. I got to get better at that. I suck at that. I got to get better at that. And they want to work on that all the time. That weakness, 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 weakness. Now, if that weakness is undermining your ability to influence others, if it's undermining your leadership capabilities or your ability to get the job done, then let's work on it. Okay. But I don't want you to just focus all your efforts on that all the time. Focusing on your strength and developing your right-handed jump shot, your right-handed dribbling, your right-handed layup is going to improve your game exponentially more than working on your left hand 90% of the time. Because that's your strength. So lean into it, use it. Love that you bring that right-handed jump shot to the game because that's what we all want. Can you do a left-handed layup? I hope so, like to some extent, but that's not why I'm signing you to your contract, right? I want you to lean into your strength and be that. So when I do the 70-30 principle with people, I say, what are the things in life that give you energy, that drive you, that you bring to the table, that you're really good at, that when you're done, you go, that was awesome. Like I love doing that. I could probably do that all day. And it almost brings a little smile to your face, or you go home and you tell your spouse about it, or you tell your friend about it. Like it got you going, you know? What's that? And then we call that your 70, the things that you should be doing 70% of the time. 30% of the times we should be doing the things that don't give us energy in life. Okay. Things that bog us down, they drain us, they're not fun. And that's what we use as called the 70-30 principle. That's how we start talking about what are the things that you should be doing or the things that, you shouldn't be doing. That's where we need to give each other permission. Because here's the thing, Reed. If I'm a left-handed ball player and you're right-handed, then naturally we're going to go to those sides of the court, probably, depending on what the game is strategy wise. And we're gonna play to our strengths. And I always tell people this: hey, man, if I write with my right hand, and my teacher comes and says, "Hey, Scott, I need you to write an 8-page essay with your left hand," I'm gonna be like, "Well, that's stupid. Why would I ever do that?" I'm gonna ask my buddy over here who writes with his left hand to write the paper. We're going to collaborate on this thing. I'm not going to, I mean, I'll dictate, but I need him to actually execute. Use your strengths. Leaders don't do this. They think they have to do everything. They have to write the essay with their left hand because somebody asked them to do that. And now the expectation is that they have to do that thing. And that is not knowing yourself well. That's not loving the thing you bring to the table. And it's not leading yourself intentionally. That is reactive behavior. And that is what destroys leadership and teams and cultures.
So I'm going to then take this, and if I'm hearing that and I'm giving advice, sounds like what's really needed is for people to do an evaluation of where they're spending their time, right? Because when I think about my 70-30, doing stuff like this, doing these kinds of interviews and having discussions with smart people and interesting people, and then obviously we use this to build brand, right? That's something that we both do. I could do this all day, every day. Sitting in front of that computer over there, in front of spreadsheets, which is necessary work for our agency, it makes me want to like just jump out the window. Now, my wife, she could spend her whole day in front of those spreadsheets and being on camera and stuff like that. It's something that really drains her, right? So figuring out, where are you spending your time? Are you spending your time in the right, quadrant, in that correct quadrant? Are you spending your 70% of your time there? Because if it's flipped, and you're maybe not seeing the results that you want in life or your business or whatever it is, or you're not enjoying it, or you're really not having the type of, satisfaction that you're looking for, you're feeling burnt out, it might be because those things are out of whack. So that would
Amen.
be a really directly applicable use case for this, it feels like.
You nailed it, dude. That's it. And leaders come to me and they say, just, I don't know, I feel drained all the time. And I'm like, well, what's your 70-30? And they're like, I don't know. It's kind of flipped right now. It's more 30-70. That's how we use the language. Like
Mhm.
instead of me coming to you and saying, hey, Reed, how you doing today? And what do you usually say? I'm good. Like things are
Right.
going, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. And you say, how you doing? I say, I'm good. But now I say, hey, Reed, how's your 70-30 today? And now you go, well, I don't know. I think it's like 50-50 actually today.
Mhm.
Like it causes you to intentionally think about what's going on and how you're feeling naturally, and to communicate that, and real quantifiable. It quantifies the question, how are you doing? So now if I come to my client and they're like, man, it's flipped. It's like 30-70 or something. Then I can go, 30-70. Let's look back at your 70-30 list that you created a long time ago of the 30% stuff that's draining you, 70% stuff that gives you life. What on the 70% can we add back into what you're doing?
Right.
Okay. Now, intentionally leading myself, I go, podcast interviews. Yeah. Okay. I've noticed I've not been doing them. I've been bogged down a lot with some of the nitty gritty details of my business. I haven't been able to get out and do them as interviews, and maybe I don't like finding the people. So I'm going to outsource. Like, what can you outsource to enable you to do the things that give you life? So um, that's what it's about. And until we do that, we're going to feel bogged down, stressed. We're not going to have the energy, and then we're going to wonder why.
I love that. I love that immediately actionable and applicable tip there, and a way to reframe frankly, how we communicate with one another, right? Your accountability buddy, your business partner, your spouse. These are questions, and this is the way that you should be discussing these things. Scott, I know you're a busy man. You've got a lot to get to. It means a lot to me that you took the time to do this interview with me. How can people follow you? How can they learn more about you and the work that you do?
They can go to skotwaldron.com, SKOTWALDRON.com, and find out all my stuff there, coaching stuff, speaking stuff. If you want to hire me to come speak to your organization about this topic, unlocking your personal brand with 8 minutes of intentionality, vision and change, and how to tackle that well, multi-generational tug of war. There's a lot of topics that I'm talking about right now. If any of those things interest you, let me know. And my book, Unlocked, a 52-week guide for the intentional leaders, on Amazon or wherever you buy books, you can find that. And my podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, by Unlocked, the same name. So you can look for me there. And you know what? LinkedIn, find me there. I'm there all the time doing stuff, talking about stuff. So I love being there. So thanks, man. I appreciate you. And I hope that everybody listens to what you have to say. I know you have a lot to offer. I have, trusted you with my clients in the past, because of the work you do. And it's a multi-year relationship that we've had. And so I trust you a lot, and I appreciate you doing that. And I hope that other people see that and value that as well.
Well, Scott, that means a lot coming from you. It really does. And I hope we have many more years of working together and being friends. And again, maybe we'll have another chance to have you back on the podcast. Maybe you can come join us in the beautiful Rogue Pine Studios here in Winder sometime
One
soon.
day,
You
man,
never know.
one day. I
If
keep
you
driving
trek,
out past there, like to get out to, going out towards Athens,
mhm,
to visit my sister-in-law, and we drive through Winder every time. So I think about you often.
we'll stop by anytime. Folks, thank you all for watching. Thanks for being a part of this little experiment that we have called the Grow Rogue podcast. All of Scott's links that he mentioned are going to be in the show notes, or if you're watching in YouTube, it's going to be in the description of the video here. If you need to get in touch with us, if you'd like our help building your brand, growing your business, if you need a newsletter, if you need social media, if you want a podcast just like this, we've got places to film, we've got videographers and editors, and we can help do those things. Just go to roguepine.co. That's our agency. And that's our show. Thanks so much, everybody.